What are the challenges for actors that are playing these parts that a lot of people know about already or have seen in movies?
It is a challenge to play a historical character. There are lots of other productions of The Miracle Worker out there, as well as movies. I think that the challenge then becomes for an actor to be able to find what resonates in those characters with them.
Yeah.
And bring that out within their performance.
What are the primary themes that are in the production?
I think the biggest one, obviously, is language.
Yes.
In Miracle Worker, we know that there's a deficit there in terms of the traditional way in which we communicate. So finding other ways of communicating is really important throughout the process of this play. There's also themes regarding the parent-child bond. We see that with some of the secondary and primary characters within the show and how that changes over time.
You've said that texture should help us tell the story. Would you explain this?
It's Annie's play. It's the Miracle Worker, and she is the Miracle Worker. When we meet her and when she comes to the house, she still has a hard time seeing. So when we were talking with the designers, we talked a lot about what does that mean for the world of the play. So we talked a lot about bringing the texture out, and not necessarily the color, but the textures out in the costumes and in the scenery, so that as a sighted person, maybe you're seeing the texture that Annie and Helen might be feeling.
Talk a bit about the male characters that are in the play.
Yes, and there are several. There's, Helen's father, Captain Keller. He's an ex-general, Confederate ex-general, who is now running a newspaper. He's very upstanding, upright Southern gentleman.
Okay.
And then there's his son from a previous marriage, James, who is 17 when we meet him in the play. And he's going through, I guess, what most 17-year-olds go through when they lose their mom and dad gets remarried. And now he's got a sister who has both hearing and sight deficits and is kind of running roughshod over the household and kind of what that does to his life. And trying to come to terms with the fact that actually his new mother, his stepmother, is only 3 or 4 years older than he is. And then the other main male character that we have is the director of the Perkins School, who sends Annie away. He thinks it's time for her to go into the world and do what she's been trained to do, which is to teach other blind children. We had talked about double casting that role because there's a farm hand that comes in and out through the rest of the show, and then we also have the doctor in the very first scene.
Why is it important that the characters of Percy, Martha, and Vinny are portrayed by African American actors?
In this particular story, I think it's really important to the relationships of the characters to understand a couple of things. One, we still are in the South, and they have servants. We're somewhat post-slavery, but we're still talking about African American servants in white households. Right. The other dimension that it brings, and something that isn't really in the script if you read it, but through the research that I've done, you realize that Annie Sullivan detested slavery. And so this sets up this challenging dynamic even before she meets Captain Keller, because he stands for all of these things that she can't stand. Viney is the cook, and we see her in almost every scene, and she really does kind of help keep the household moving forward and together and smoothing things over when Helen is running through. But she also has her own children and what that relationship looks like and how they get through this play as well. So, and then the relationship that Annie forms with the household staff. I think it's an important story as well.
What do you want to see from the volunteers at the audition?
So what's important for me to see is that actors are listening to each other, that they're developing relationships with each other, really interested in seeing what chemistry can develop between characters, and if they can make choices.
So Kristen, what's the thing you like most about The Miracle Worker?
I think the thing I like most about this play is the fact that it is Annie Sullivan's story, and the fact that she's an American hero. She perseveres, and I think that's, in a lot of ways, that's the American spirit.
Good. So, everyone come out and audition.